welcome back to the stage, Carl Page.
Well, hello. So I guess I wanted to talk about another engine of innovation that we might bring to bear on this problem and speed things up, and that is the prize competition. And at 1:30, we're going to have Peter Diamandis talk to us in sort of general terms, but also in specific terms about two of the most current, appropriate, similar prize competitions to what I think that we might benefit from for the solid-state fusion space. And why are we doing this? Well, we're in the planning stages right now. I don't have any solid information to announce, unfortunately. There's a lot of details to iron out. You know, if you're designing a game, people will game the system. You have to think really carefully about how that's going to happen. I'll start with a couple observations about human nature. One is, people don't like to work on things that are unpopular. And a lot of times, it's harder to convince people that something's possible than it is to get them to do it once they know it's possible. That goes for institutions even more so. And you might assume that everybody wants to work on projects with high impact that could really make a difference in the world. But actually, modest people would rather have modest jobs with modest and limited impact. So people run and hide from things that could really make a difference. So how do you get people to work on relevant stuff? And one answer is a prize competition. It takes a lot of extra cultural work to get important things to happen as compared to incremental change. And there's some nice benefits to a prize competition. One is something magical happens the moment you announce a new competition. At that moment, the implausible suddenly becomes the inevitable. And the people that were tilting at windmills, like Don Juan, suddenly become lining up for a race like Olympians. And everybody picks their favorite. And success is inevitable. And you don't have to wait for the prize to be awarded for that to happen. It kind of happens close to when you announce a good prize. And some teams start to line up. And now, of course, in a capitalist society, once a company has good promise, they have good people, a good product, a good market, then you can rely on bankers and investors, angels, to come in and finance them. So we don't need to have a prize for a technology that's close to commercialization. And a lot of people believe that the solid-state fusion space is already at that moment. We'll see. But it doesn't hurt to have a competition, even if you're of that mindset, because it suddenly becomes a lot more plausible, and there's a lot more attention to it. The excitement factor is really what makes stuff happen. People can ignore something that's obscure. They can shun something. They can blackball something that's obscure. But if everybody's got eyes on it, it moves forward. So, if you're doing the Lord's work and everyone hates you, the problem is you suck at PR. So, I guess one example, there are many examples of great prize competitions, but I'll say the Ansari X Prize that Peter Diamandis was working with was a great example of something that really had no economic value. It was to get a spacecraft into space suborbital twice in a couple weeks. But it was very different than anything government had done before. And it was an important sub-goal to getting a commercial space industry going, and it succeeded in that. So we have to do a lot more thinking about what the appropriate goals or sub-goals for this prize would be. I will say incentive prizes in general are growing fast. In the last 10 years, there's been $375 million worth of incentive prizes given out. And these are not just for people's life work. These are for achieving concrete goals. And that's just the prizes over $100,000. So anyway, I guess we're looking for designing the prize to be for that third path to nuclear power that's neither fission involving unstable isotopes or fusion involving $100 million accelerators. And we need to define that really well. Criteria might include anomalous heat and gammas and transmutation products, neutrons. Technologies that we would want to invite might be defined by the outputs. But obviously things like electrolysis, gas discharge, metal hydrides, cavitation fusion would all count. And there's even been thoughts that we could open the prize up to people with heat pumps. You know, that's not a nuclear technology, but if they beat solid state fusion, maybe that's the right answer. I don't think that is likely to happen, but that's the kind of thing that can get more eyes and more contestants on the problem. Are heat pumps always going to be better than solid state fusion? I wouldn't bet on it, but that creates some excitement. One of the most important things would be who the judging committee is, and that would be one of the main attractions for having the competition, because a lot of people in this field are just saying, please, please look at what we've got, you know, and they don't manage to get reviewers, either peer reviewers for their papers or the kind of professionals that you need to establish more widespread appreciation for the field. So if we can get a great review committee for the judging, that would be really awesome. Another really important thing is, you know, we've had some attempts to replicate cold fusion on like the TV show Mythbusters and such, pretty poorly done, as you'd expect, but you know, we could have a funded, good team with a budget to actually replicate things. And that could be described as a red team that would come along and take information from the team that thinks it's won the prize and see if it can make it work. We could also have a specific location where all the contestants have to bring their equipment and operate it in one place, or we could have the review committee or the judges go visit them. Those kind of questions we need to answer. But the neat thing about offering a prize is, you know, this field, we have a lot of small companies doing great work, but they're not very good at talking to each other, trusting each other. They need to keep a lot of trade secrets. They have to get ready for writing new patents. When you're offering an incentive prize, you can drag some of that information out into the open. And that really helps the field, because when nobody's talking, very little progress is made. So we have the opportunity to create a lot of more information. There's also been a lot of questions about what kind of break-even or results would we want to see. And of course, there's scientific break-even, which the hot fusion people are notorious for preferring, and engineering break-even, where the energy into the entire system counts as compared to the output. And there's also economic break-even. Do you think that you have a system that can generate its own value by providing a product like energy? Those things can all be tested. And as the stages progress, where you go from having a proof of concept to a proof of concept that's reliable, to having a example of a commercial prototype, to having a commercial prototype that's manufacturable, to having a small manufacturing run, you know, private industry and finance gets increasingly interested. And so we have to figure out how far up that chain that we could get it with an incentive prize. There have been famous examples. I believe EPRI, the Research Institute for the Utilities, was studying cold fusion. At some point, they decided it would probably work, but nobody wanted to buy a $200,000 hot water heater that never needs fuel. So the economic tests matter at some point. So I'm excited about prizes. We'll talk more about it. I really could use input and feedback because obviously there's a lot of unknowns here. The one really great thing about prizes is we've had wonderful partners in the government working on this field, but there are a lot of limitations and stops and starts, and the US government has a hard time working with people overseas. And one great thing about incentive prizes is even the government can help fund an incentive prize that might be won by anyone in the world. And that's been a great way that we can increase the amount of collaboration going on. We also feel that investors and philanthropies, family offices would like to fund this kind of thing. It's also possible that we could fund the prize competition partly by crowdfunding. But the better our review committee is, the easier it will be to get this thing the kind of support that it needs. And there's also insurance arbitrage opportunities and even hole-in-one insurance that Peter might talk about later on. Some of these competitions have a qualifying round where they actually invite a large set of people to submit an application, and then they pick a certain number that'll be the semifinalists, and then they deliver cash to the semifinalists to help them continue in the competition. And so that can be a substantial fraction of the total prize amount. And then after they get the cash on a relatively even playing field, then a winner will be chosen. And after a winner is selected by the judges, perhaps it's then referred to the red team replication effort that would also be funded and be able to do a really respectable job validating the information that's been learned. So I think this is going to be an exciting effort. I wish I could say it was done. It takes a little longer to design one of these than I thought it would. I don't have a whole lot of answers about any kind of details right now, but I would like feedback on what kind of questions I should be asking, what kind of people would like to join in being involved in a design of such a incentive prize, and what kind of attributes you think it should have. So, thanks. There may be questions available on Hop-In or at the microphone. And
once again, everyone, the Q&A mic is to your right, and Hop-In instructions are on the center screen.
Hi, this is Ruby Carrot, and what is your time frame that you have to iron out all these questions in to really tighten it up and get the criteria together?
My hope would be getting most of the thing designed and available for review by the community in just a couple months, and then have the contest itself unfold. And I always like to shorten schedules beyond the reasonable, but I feel like we could have a great contest that would be 1 and 2 years. I know a lot of people think it would be 3 years, and a lot of it depends on the scale of the prizes. So that's my feeling, but I am looking for input. It's also possible that one could arrange something more quickly if you want to evaluate things that already exist, and I'm open to that. Yeah.
Yes, John Brandenburg from Kepler Aerospace in Midland, Texas. We're not trying to put our neighbors out of business, just give them better heat pumps, basically. But I just wanted to suggest in the prize category that you kind of emulate a beauty contest and have a soft edge, so there's a grand prize winner, a Miss Runner-Up, and a Miss Congeniality. So it's not completely a hit or miss for people.
Yeah, I think that's really key, and I think one of the things we noticed with the Ansari X Prize is that the losers still got funded and got to make great companies. And the industry was very much born from that moment. I think the fact that attention is drawn both to the space and to the people involved is the main benefit here. It's mostly a PR exercise, and it's not about the prize. And we've also seen that the amount of investment that results from an incentive prize is always way more than the amount of the prize, because how much do you win at a race car race versus building a car? One race doesn't pay for a race car. Over time they might expect to make money, but usually it's the excitement and the opportunity to be in the public eye that drives such activities. So the amount of investment that went into the commercial space business as a result of the Ansari Prize was quite a good multiple.
Hi, my name is Jim Phillips. I own a company called Marple Skiers, and this seems like an easy kind of contest. Just simply to see who can make the most amount of energy from the least amount of input. Nothing more, nothing less.
That's right.
With the all the resources to prove the how much heat is created and how much energy is used. Thank you.
Right, a power density contest or energy density contest, or yeah, that would be a very good metric. Let's see. Okay. Well, with that, I will bid you adieu, and I would like to welcome our next speaker, and that would be Ernest Nieres, who is the person that has helped make our space here about the safest possible indoor meeting that we could hope to have. You might notice we have some Airlock 389 air cleaners positioned around the room, 3 of them, and Mr. Nieres is responsible for delivering those, and also the reusable face masks that we have are provided by Airlock 389. And I'd like you to describe your technology. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Carl. I'd like to thank the organizers and Mr. Page for inviting me over to present our product. I'm Ernie Nieres. I'm the CMO of Airlock 389. We focus basically on products that deactivate the COVID virus. Our mask that we've been giving out today, if you don't have one, we're still downstairs. It's free. You don't have to pay for anything. You just have to come downstairs and we'll give you a mask. The technology is based on active carbon nanotubes on a mesofiber. And basically what it does is it attracts the COVID virus itself, traps it in an electric field, and uses electrostatic charge to destroy or deactivate the protein dipoles on the virus. So it's not a filter where we actually catch it. No, it's a purifier. It's the same technology that's being used for water purification in the International Space Station. The inventor and owner of the patent is Chris Cooper. He was working for NASA for quite a number of years. I'm actually been in the electronics and semiconductor industry for the past 35 years. And it's funny where in that industry, we don't like electrostatic discharge, but then in this industry, it actually helps us a lot. The purifiers that we have here come with the same media that we use on our mask itself. It has an air change per hour of about 12 to 15, depending on the size of the room. I don't want to bore you right now with all the details, but I'm going to be here throughout the convention. So if you have any questions or concerns, you can catch me anytime and we can discuss most of the information on data that you need offline. Again, thank you very much for inviting me, Carl, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you very much.
Airlock 389 presents next-generation active air purification products, including the Airlock 389 AV100 antiviral respirator in both Pro and Eco versions. Our patent-pending purification filter continually deactivates viruses, absorbs VOCs like smoke, and filters particles like dust and pollen. Like a spider's web, our pioneering activated carbon mesofibers mesh with polymer fibers, forming a strong, breathable, and reusable defense. A continuous electrostatic charge draws the virus to the charge, capturing, then deactivating the virus. This ongoing electrostatic process deactivates viruses breathing in and breathing out by destroying its ability to infect cells and replicate. That means Airlock 389's purification media deactivates and removes harmful viruses from the air simply by wearing the mask and breathing. Our continuous deactivation process and spider's web-like strength means the AV100 respirators are also washable and reusable. Active purification combined with a comfortable tight seal provides Airlock 389 level protection. Airlock 389, home of revolutionary active air purification products.